In most games, when you befriend an NPC, you can get various benefits such as them joining your party, unlocking new quests, or getting a discount from their shops. In Wandering Sword, when you befriend an NPC, you gain the right to beat them up and loot their inventory, and they're perfectly okay with it. Let me explain. Wandering Sword is a WUXIA turn-based RPG. If you're wondering what these fancy words mean, if you look at Urban Dictionary, based is a common slang that usually means... Okay, that joke was bad. But WUXIA is basically ancient Chinese martial arts, but fantasized includes crazy superhuman feats, magical entities, and a lot of cliches. Wandering Sword starts off slow, introducing you a bit to the setting and the various mechanics of the game. Realistically, the prologue story shouldn't take too long, just do the tasks assigned to you that also function as a short tutorial, and you'll be able to breeze through it all, unless you're me, in which case, you end up fishing. And then after fishing, now you're mining. And now, you can fight the old man? All distractions and violence against the elderly aside, Wandering Sword really opens up once you get past the prologue as you're thrust into a large and beautiful open world full of martial artists, different locations to explore, different stories, quest lines, and so much more. The main story also started off pretty slow, but it got a lot better as I continued to progress it. I do want to say that if you're looking for a game where you can play as an evil or a morally neutral character, then you're going to have to look somewhere else. The main character is a good guy no matter what. Now that's not to say that the main story is bad, it's just rather linear. Even though I enjoyed the main story, the real highlight of the game for me was the side stories and the quests and the various companions that you can meet. You can tell a lot of love and care was put into many of the side characters, and oftentimes I found myself liking them a lot more than the actual main characters of the story. A neat thing is that certain side characters and companions actually offer extra insight or dialogue in other side quests or in the main story as well. And with how long you can keep some of them, it's no surprise that I grew very attached to many of them. Seeing their personal struggles and growth, plus their relationship with the main character develop as well, was just honestly really nice to see. Which makes this next part of my review very painful to say. Spoiler alert, this final part of me reviewing the story contains spoilers for the end. I'm trying to minimize it as much as possible, but it's still a fair warning just in case you want to go into the game with no knowledge of the ending. This next part of my criticism is a spoiler on the ending, but it really shouldn't affect your decision making or the story that you experience, but it's still a spoiler, so if you want to skip it, you can just click on the next chapter of this review, which focuses on the gameplay mechanics which you can find using the YouTube chapters feature. Alright, spoiler time. The greatest shame about Wandering Sword is that the companions you meet in the game, aside from maybe 4 or 5 in the main story, do not have any kind of ending whatsoever. The 16 or so potential companions, some of which you meet in the very beginning of the game and can play through so many hours of the game with, have absolutely no ending whatsoever, and that's the saddest part about Wandering Sword. Some of these characters have a bit of closure when you finish their companion quest, but not every companion has a companion quest to begin with, and some of them are a lot less fleshed out than others. I really hope this gets changed somehow because many of the companions you have are just so much more compelling than the actual main cast, and have a much more organic relationship with the main character too. It's just so much lost potential. It's quite frankly one of those few things that prevents me from giving Wandering Sword a perfect score. The combat and leveling systems in Wandering Sword is quite a bit different from traditional RPG games. In most RPG games, you earn experience, you level up, your stats go up, and you might learn a new move or two. In Wandering Sword, you don't level up your character, and instead of experience points, you earn martial points. Martial points are then used to level up your martial arts skills instead. There are 5 types of weapons in the martial world that the main character can all utilize. They can learn different types of skills for each one, and in order to increase the stats of the main character, you have to level up something called a cultivation method. Cultivation in the WUXIA world is essentially how martial artists strengthen themselves and continue to grow stronger, which is the same for Wandering Sword. Every time you level up a cultivation method, your maximum HP and mana points increase, and you also get something called a meridian point. Meridian points are used to level up special trees for martial artists that directly increase your base stats and sometimes give extra bonuses like having a 15% chance to get another turn every time you use an attack. So collecting cultivation methods is one of the key things to growing stronger in Wandering Sword. You get these through various means like the main story, side quests, learning skills from your companions, and honestly just befriending a bunch of random NPCs who happen to have a cultivation method in their inventory and then beating them up. It's an interesting system, and overall I did enjoy it. It just took some time getting used to. The various cultivation methods are also martial skills in their own right that can give you different bonuses in combat if you use them, and there's a large variety of skills for all of the 5 weapons to use as well. One of my favorite things is that any martial arts book I found could be used both for the main character and any companion that used the same type of weapon. If it was a cultivation method, then anyone could learn it, so you could strengthen every character in your party. These systems made for a pretty interesting experience, and overall I did enjoy it, especially because I got to see the growth of my character as they went from essentially a nobody to becoming one of the most powerful martial artists around. The final part of this review is about the other things in the game that didn't really fit in with the rest of the review, where I was talking about the story or the gameplay mechanics. Most notably, I'm going to be talking about traveling, graphics, and the overall flow of the game, and more. Crafting. Crafting is a fundamental part in many games, and Wandering Sword is no exception. Gear helps a lot in powering up your characters, and I don't really have a problem with finding the various blueprints to be able to craft new gear, as it mostly came naturally as I explored the world and did various quests or befriended random NPCs. Later on though, gaining the materials to keep crafting started to get a lot more tedious. Every time you gather resources, you use up a stamina bar, which only refills by using items or resting at an inn. This isn't too bad in the beginning, but later on when you're constantly trying to get better materials, to craft better gear, to be able to farm better experience and high level enemies, the material grind starts to get very annoying as there's no real way to speed it up. And that grind on top of everything else really makes crafting start to get a lot more annoying later on. The game itself is beautiful. The art direction for it is fantastic, while also using the 2.5D setting to full effect. I honestly don't have any real complaints about it. It may not be your personal preference, but I can tell that the developers put a lot of work into designing the various areas of the map and the various cities that you can go to. Just sometimes it is a bit misleading on whether an area is actually going to lead to a new zone or if it's a dead end. Exploring the map is great, and there's many different characters to meet, martial artists to fight, and a lot of side quests to encounter. Things do get tedious though once you realize that you have to keep going back and forth to old locations that are on the other side of the map without any kind of fast travel option. Another problem I faced during my time playing was the lack of a world map. So it was very hard for me to find new places to begin with, and I had to keep running around back and forth trying to find these new locations. Since I finished my playthrough though, the developers have added a world map and have stated their plans to add various features such as fast travel, new game plus, and more, so that's something to look forward to. They also mentioned that they want to add more DLC story content, which I think will be great. I just hope that they expand more on the endings and maybe add more martial skills to learn. Overall, I really enjoyed Wandering Sword. It's not the best game, but it's a very solid one that held my attention from start to finish. The combat is fun, the world is full of many amazing characters, and despite some hiccups with the story, it overall kept my attention, especially the side characters. So if you're looking for a new RPG game to play, I highly recommend Wandering Sword. And if you like this review, please leave a like, comment, and maybe even subscribe, as it definitely helps out the channel. Also, sorry for if my voice sounds weird. I woke up and my throat has decided that it is turned against me. So that is very unfortunate. And I've been wanting to do this review for so long, but I was so busy, so I was behind on a lot of work. So, yeah, my voice might be a bit ugh right now. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Take care.